What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Today is Best Served Podcast 264, and we are talking investing in human capital. You know, the most important thing to myself and Best Served is Best Served New Volume 1, where we are working with Meta Asian Kitchen in Denver, Colorado, on going from food hall into their full brick and mortar operation, kind of what that looks like from end to end. This is episode 6 of 10. Last week, we talked about budget, and definitely check out that episode. And there's a link to the full playlist in the comments. And next week, we're going to dig into your physical space. A lot of questions always about real estate, and maybe now more than ever, as we don't know what's happening through the pandemic when it comes to dine-in and all of that. So we're going to dig into that next week. Want to lay down the groundwork. What we've really been focused on is cultivating this sense of belonging. For us, sense of belonging is the nucleus. It is the singular, most quintessential thing that restaurants actually offer, both internally to their teams as well as to their communities. And restaurant operators have an opportunity to be leaders in that community. And so we're really going to talk about that. We're going to be bringing in Carrie Luxem from Restaurant HR Group and carrieluxem.com to kind of lay the groundwork for us of understanding the importance of investing in your people, the importance of HR, bringing some humanity into human resources. And then we're also going to talk with Jordan Bush of 7 Shifts to talk about scheduling, but more importantly, to talk about employee life cycle and the way that we navigate efficiencies within our ability to bring food and beverage and hospitality. All right. Ken and Doris, I want to bring you guys in now. Good to see you both.
Good morning.
What's up? How are you?
What's up? Episode 6 of 10. We've been cranking. There's been a lot of stuff going in. And so one of the big things I want to really focus on as we start to really get into the meat of it, as we're starting to extend beyond just what we think about your heritage and Chinese American food, what we're thinking about when it comes to telling our story. Right now, we've been talking budget. Now we're talking a lot of the HR and processes you need to be on top of to bring in your teams. We want to always build towards not being another statistic, not being part of those industry standards that do not serve so many operators, because we know this game is hard. 60% of restaurants close in the first 12 months. And so we really need to attack that problem. And so much of it comes down to thinking and execution, and we need to really focus on those things. So that's going to be our focus through this episode. So you guys ready for that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's bring in Carrie Luxem, again, of Restaurant HR Group.
Hi,
Carrie, good to see you.
Hi, good. How are you?
You've been a leader and kind of thinking differently, which I really appreciate, in HR for some time now. And you're representing from Dunkin' Donuts, Jersey Mike's, to spots in your town, Chicago, like the Purple Pig, and even in Colorado, where we're all at, the Tag Restaurant Group. So,
Yeah.
you know, you really touch a lot of different angles, and it's always fundamentally for you about investing in people. You know?
Absolutely.
And so let's get into it.
Okay.
Yes. Start at the beginning.
First of all, it's really nice to meet you guys. I've been watching what you guys are doing, and it's really nice to meet you guys. And I know I'm going to try to give you guys a lot of information here in the next 10 minutes or so. And but I am going to leave you here with a gift. So don't let me forget to tell you that before I exit out of here. Okay.
Nice.
So yeah. Okay. Don't you forget. So my name's Carrie Luxem. I am the founder and CEO of Restaurant HR Group, and I have been working with restaurants I've been in the restaurant industry for 30 years. I started at Dairy Queen as a teenager. I spent 10 years with Potbelly Sandwich Works, growing to hundreds of restaurants. My husband is a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee. He has 27 Dunkin' Donuts. And so I'm really I love this industry. I love that no matter what it is you serve, it's truly about the people. We're in the people business. And we talk a lot about, how to take care of people. So in order for you guys, obviously, to have success as you grow, you need to be able to create great experiences, not just for your customers, but for your employees. And the way that you do that is very simply, you got to do 2 things. You've got to manage the things that happen in your food truck, in your restaurant, or in your restaurants, and you've got to lead and inspire people. So I really break it down to those are the 2 differentiators, managing things and leading people, that really makes a difference. So what I'd like to do today is kind of go through the life cycle of an employee. I wrote a book called Restaurant Operators HR Playbook, where I essentially go through the entire life cycle of an employee so you can set up simple people systems that will help people do their jobs so you can focus your energy on leading and inspiring and coaching people. So I just wanted to talk about five, I'm going to categorize this into 5 different parts that you can focus on and you know, make sure that you're implementing well in order to have success. So as I'm sure you can imagine, the first part is to ensure that you have great systems to recruit and hire talent. And this is single-handedly one of the most critical things that I hear restaurant operators talk about, but it oftentimes gets the least attention, which is really interesting. It's like all of these efforts to go out and find customers and create that experience and market for people to come into your restaurants, that level of energy to find and market for people that are going to represent your brand, it's critically important. So how do you go out and recruit great people? Most people put an ad on Indeed and call it a day, right? But you've got to try to do other things. You know, if you do more than what most people do, you're going to get better results. So you've got to figure out how to make that emotional connection at the onset. So how do you do that? Yes, you can place some really well done ads on job boards like Indeed or ZipRecruiter, and there's all kinds of different types of online job boards that you can utilize that will help you generate the message that you have openings for crew members or for managers. But you also want to tap into your local community, tap into the schools. If you're opening a restaurant in a certain community, go knock on the doors of the people in your community, and then tell them who you are. I mean, there's so much power in just networking and being really excited about your brand. And then, hey, by the way, we're looking for great people. Oh, my son's looking for a job. It's kind of like that whole thing. I learned this early on at Potbelly, how excited people get for a free sandwich, right? Like anything that you can do. So if you bring somebody a platter of food or invite them in for a drink and then ask them whether it's a radio station or something like that, like, hey, talk about the fact that we're this cool brand and we're looking for great people. Constantly doing that is going to separate you from everybody else. Most people are very reactive in their recruiting efforts and not proactive. But if you think of your, your recruiting is really like your employment brand and it's part of your whole brand, constantly looking for people, constantly talking to the world, tapping into the local high schools and community colleges and universities, putting stuff on social media that says, hey, listen, look, this guy who's worked with us for a year, he's a rock star. And by the way, we're hiring, you know, and sometimes you don't even have to say that you're hiring. Recruiting doesn't always have to be a formal event. It doesn't always have to be a job post. So make sure that you're doing that. And if you're doing that consistently and you're doing it very well, you're going to have trickling in people on a regular basis. Okay.
Carrie,
and then
once very, very proud of us. Let me just tell you, that's been a big focus for us of telling that part of Ken and Doris's story is going to be fundamental. Their family history. We had Yumi Tran from Indonesian Cuisine, who's been there for 17 years. And she has a pipeline where families mark the calendar when their kids turn 16 to go work for Miss Yumi. So we've already brought that thinking in, which I really, really love.
I love that.
100% behind what you're talking about right now.
What you're doing, and you know what that is like, to me, leadership is about making an emotional connection with somebody. If you can start that out the very beginning, you're figuring out how to emotionally connect with somebody. You already have a win. Why would somebody want to come and work for you instead of the guy next to you? Because they love what you're focused on. They love, that's what the world wants. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. If you can connect with an audience, whether it's a stay-at-home mom or a student or whatever it is, and they feel really great about you as a team and your brand and your mission and your purpose, they're going to definitely click on your hiring link before the next guy. So I love that. I love that you guys.
What's number two? Let's get into
So it's still number one, but the second part of the recruiting is the hiring part, right? So it's kind of categorized into one. So recruiting and hiring. And so when you're hiring, I think that a lot of times people make the mistake of, pre-screening too hard. You gotta talk to a lot of people. If I was a very non-traditional hire at Potbelly. When I was 20, in my mid-20s, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the confidence, I didn't have the education that they said they needed in the ad, but the owner of that company, the visionary of that company, decided to talk to me anyway. And he, I'm not going to speak for him, but I'm sure he's glad he did, because I worked really hard for him for 10 plus years, and I think of, early on in my days when I kind of talked to a lot of people and I thought we wanted something because of their experience, and we would turn away resumes. But when I started talking to people and understanding their passion, and we started to hire people that were a much better fit. You might hear a lot about, are they a cultural fit or not? That doesn't mean all about just, are they just like me and it's a personality thing? It's really, are they going to be able to do a really great job for us? And there's a lot of factors that play into place. But my coaching on this part of it is talk to more people, give people chances. When you're doing an interview, don't just ask, generic questions and get generic answers. Have an in-depth conversation, really get to know people and be who you are in that process. And you'll find that you're going to bring on better people. So recruit differently, make sure you're asking those amazing questions. You can have screen forms and tools to help you and make sure you're asking the right legal questions, but you've got to you've got to be real, and you've got to ask. I always say the best interview question is the follow-up question. Most people are prepared for an interview. So you ask an interview, tell me about yourself, or tell me about a time this happened, and they respond in the way that they've rehearsed. But when you say, oh, why did you do that? Or how did you do that? Or tell me more, it gets them away from those canned answers, and it really helps them open up and feel natural, and you'll really get an idea if they're going to be a fit for you. All right, so that's number one. Okay, that was the longest one, I promise. The rest will be nice and short. So the second one is, so now you've done the work. This is now the real work begins, right? You've got the people, so you've got to make sure you make a great first impression and that you set them up for success. So you want to make sure you have a really thoughtful, and this can be you can be very themey, you can put a lot of, work into this, but you've got to have an orientation and an onboarding process that you are prepared for. Make sure you invite them and you're there when they show up, and that you have their uniforms, and that you maybe take them on a tour, give them the history, all of those things. And you've got to have it all planned out and organized as a system, and when you do that well, people feel like, hey, they really care about me, and they're prepared for me, and that sort of thing. So, and then how you're going to train them. And very often, we're busy, we need people, we need bodies, we need to serve sandwiches or pizza or coffee or whatever it is. So I'm just going to take them out of training because they're great. You got to have a training program and do everything that you can to fully train them, because it's going to hurt you in the long run if you don't. So number two is set up a really great orientation and an onboarding process and training, and make sure that you teach people how to have success in their job at the very onset. That level of commitment will pay off long term, even if you're bringing in seasonal employees, or if you're bringing in people that aren't going to necessarily have a long-term path with you. It just shows that you care about their success, and when you're dedicated to that. All right. Any questions so far?
Ken and Doris, like, you guys have been in restaurants. We've all been in restaurants. This exact scenario, it drives me crazy, because what happens is, like, hey, I hired this person and I didn't do a very good job of finding the right person, but I hired them. They're coming on.
Right.
Why don't you come? You're starting at 3:00 on Monday. Why don't you come like half an hour before? We'll fill out paperwork. They come on Monday. Lunch was crazy busy. I don't have time right now. Let's just get you going, and we'll get you checked in at the end. Yeah. It's a long shift. Why don't you come tomorrow and just take this paperwork home with you and then come back? Well, tomorrow that manager's off. The next manager's like, well, that's not my job. Somebody else is going to do that. And you go 2, 3, 4 days. Hell, you might not even get paid because you don't get on payroll in time, and then they have to cut you a check. This all the time.
Yeah, you've been in the restaurant.
That's so actually an industry standard. It has become so normal that is an expectation above what Carrie's talking about. You have to break that cycle. That cannot be, because how can then you hold somebody accountable to making the dumplings exactly to spec the way that you tell them to, when you from day one told them that expectations are fluid? You do them whenever you have time, but if you don't, you just do whatever and get through the day. So I really appreciate it.
And it's really interesting, because it's like, even me as a business owner, and I'm hiring people, it's hard for me sometimes to go, oh, just got to spend these few hours training them when they could really be cranking out some payroll or whatever it may be. But it always ends up more positive in the end. And I'll tell you, I work with hundreds of very small restaurateurs and larger groups. The people that are committed to this always win. They are always the ones that come out ahead. So it's just a commitment you have to make, and you have to have that standard that you're not going to cut corners here. Because if you cut corners, that sends a message they're going to cut corners in the things that you don't want them to. So, all right. So number one, the recruiting and hiring. Number two, the onboarding. The third thing is probably what keeps a lot of restaurateurs up at night, and it is can be very stressful. It's really around the compliance side of things, and the state and federal regulations. And we do a lot of this stuff for our clients, and it can be overwhelming. But you've got to sort of like step back and really understand what is it that you really have to ensure is compliant. And it is different in the entire country. It is the way that you schedule people might be different in the city of Chicago versus the suburbs of Chicago. There are certain rules and laws, and sometimes these rules and laws seem like they're working against us as business owners, but they are the rules and laws. So you've got to have them in place. So it's like things like you want to make sure you have your labor law posters hanging in the right places. You want to make sure that you have a system for COBRA administration and how you do leaves of absences and all of the payroll records. And when I start saying this, the list goes on and on. Child labor laws, it can be like, oh my gosh, right? So this is why I've had so much success in my career, because I break this stuff down and really simplify it. And I talk about a lot of this stuff on my social platforms. So I'm giving out this advice on a regular basis to people that need it. But I've also built a membership platform where we house all of this information. So we have a compliance section of the platform that our restaurateurs go to, and they can find out what are the sexual harassment training laws in my state, what are the child labor laws, and how do I keep up with those, and what are the predictive scheduling. And it can be head spinning, but if you have a plan, if you have a system, it is not that overwhelming. It really is manageable, but you just have to, again, it's like anything, you've got to take the time to learn it and understand it, and figure out what those resources. I like to think that we're a very great resource for this kind of stuff, but there's law firms, there's payroll companies that will keep you updated on this kind of stuff. And as business owners, it's not something that you should put on the back burner. You really need to absorb it, understand the whys, and then follow those rules, so really making sure that you have a system in place for all of those state and federal regulations that are required by your state or by a federal government. Yeah. All right.
And Ken and Doris, same thing. I'll keep giving you guys like the context for you specifically. It's just like the budget. Go move the big rocks first. You don't want to do your budget, and you don't want to deal with compliance, because we want to make the amazing dumplings and teach people about your Chinese heritage. So do those things early and often so you get good at them, so then you don't have to worry about them. And our own Andrew Parr wrote an article that's in the comments, all kinds of links to resources. We tailored them specifically, Ken and Doris, for you guys too. So most of them are Colorado specific. So we'll dig into those with you a little bit. But compliance is scary. Yeah. It's like
it is scary.
Yeah,
it is scary. And you made a good point, Chef. The truth is, like, you've got to really think about, if you really go, okay, this is so overwhelming. Like, what do I think about first? Right. When I think about the things that really like, we have these like absolute things that we audit for our clients on a regular basis. You have to make sure that you're paying minimum wage. Yeah. At least minimum wage. You need to make sure that you are paying, that you're calculating overtime properly, because those are big ones. Those are wage and hour lawsuits that we see all the time. You need to make sure that you are, those big bucket ones. Like, obviously you need to make sure that you're training people in the states that require harassment training. But if you miss that, you have 30 days to do it. It's not that it's not important, but when you think about what could take you down, it's those big things. You've got to make sure that you're not having a person work in 2 different locations and they're working 80 hours, but you're only paying them regular time, because 2 years down the road, they're going to come back and sue you. And then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So you've got to determine what those big ones are. And we, as you guys will get familiar with what we do, you'll see we try to break this down. There's a handful of these these like overtime type things that you've got to make sure. That
Great, Carrie, you're on fire.
You just mentioned something about taking like a harassment course. Are there courses like that we're required to take as owners?
There's certain requirements as owners that you are required to do for your staff. There are certain Colorado, I don't believe, is one of the states that has requirements for harassment. But like if you're in California or you're in Illinois, you're required to put your and by the way, there's like 7 or 8 different states that have harassment training, and they all have different requirements. California, everybody has to go through a 2-hour interactive. In Illinois, so it can be so head spinning. It's just got to be organized, and you got to be able to, you got to know where you operate. And that's what we have on our platform. It's like, all right, where do you operate? Here's all the things that you have to care about. And here's what the rules are for your state. So I don't believe that you guys have the harassment training.
I think that's the most confusing part when like opening a business. There's all these requirements and things you need to do, but it's not like there's a place for you to go to that tells you like, all right, you're done with this. This is what you need to do next. You just kind of figure.
There is a place. Carrie Luxem membership platform. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about your place.
You know, it's just like
no, I totally get it.
Right.
It's so overwhelming, and that's the whole purpose that I want to help restaurateurs make sense of all this. It doesn't have to be that confusing. And again, guys, I'm a business owner as well. My husband is a restaurant operator, but I have my own little business, and sometimes I'm in this and talk about this all day and my head's spinning from it. Yeah. So it's not uncommon and it to be confused. And, you know, honestly, it's like anything. If you guys seem like really good people, you're good operators, you're doing the right things, you're going to be fine, you know, and you just got to figure out how to get there. It's a lot of times people try to figure out how to not do these things and they skirt around issues. That's when you get into trouble. But you guys are clearly being proactive and want to do the stuff right. It can be confusing, but it'll all make sense as you continue to build.
All right, Carrie, you're on fire. I want to keep us on track.
Okay,
can you give us rapid fire? The last two.
Rapid fire. The last one is safety. I mean, the fourth one is safety. You know, and that's a big bucket too. You want to make sure you're doing, you know, robbery prevention training. You want to make sure that you have food safety stuff. You want to put together opening and closing checklists to make sure that your people are safe and locking the doors and doing all of those things. You know, right now, COVID is a big thing. So there's some COVID safety things that you've got to focus on. And next year, there might be something else that happens. So just a commitment to ensuring the safety of your customers and the safety of your employees is at the top of your mind all the time. And making sure that you're doing things, whether it's knife training or skills, or, you know, whatever those things are, just make sure that you are focused on safety. And then lastly, it's really about, I could just say termination, but it's really about coaching, performance, corrective action, and termination. Like, how do you manage your people? You're going to have, no matter how great of people you are, no matter how amazing your culture is and your story is, you're going to get sometimes the wrong people. So you've got to make sure that you're really great coaches and that you every single day you hold people accountable. You've got to have, you know, put some systems in place. If you do have an underperformer, how can you help them turn it around? Improvement plans or whatever it is, corrective action forms. Again, all this stuff is on our membership platform, but corrective action forms that says, we've given you a lot of, you know, feedback and we've tried and we're doing this and it's not working. And if this doesn't happen, we're going to have to move forward with additional disciplinary action or termination. And then what happens when somebody is terminated? What happens if they're involuntarily terminated? And what happens if they are voluntarily terminated? Did we get all of the supplies back from them? Am I in a state that I have to pay them their paycheck right away? These are all kind of back to the compliance stuff. And you just want to make sure that you have a system. Again, you guys, this is being talked about in like high level, really fast, like I'm doing, it can be very, very overwhelming sounding and like, oh my gosh, do I really want to do this? It's really just about thinking about the whole life cycle of an employee. So from recruiting to termination, putting simple processes in place along the way. And by the way, you're never going to be there. You're always going to revise these. I learned this at Potbelly. We create something and we revise it. We recreate it. And that never stopped in the 10 plus years that I was at Potbelly, because the world changes, your business evolves, the rules change. So you almost have to get comfortable and understand that this is always a process that's changing and growing. Was that fast enough, Chef?
That was fire.
Excellent. That was
That
rapid
was like
fire.
a year of coaching
yeah.
in 22 minutes.
All right. I only had 15. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it. But you guys, I wish we had more time, but I would love to offer both of you guys. I want to send you guys a copy of my book, and I'd like to, my membership platform, it's an annual membership. It's actually currently the price of the membership right now is $2.99 because we've had so much success with it, and we're offering this. It's basically daily. You can reach out to us on a daily basis and get advice from us. And then we have the tools and the training and the videos and articles, hundreds of different things on the platform. I'm gonna give you guys a annual membership. The price is going up in January to $5.99 because I know it's quite a big increase, and so we're going to be pushing that. But I'm going to give you guys an annual membership at no cost as my gift to you. And you know, and you guys will see. You can reach out to us. You'll learn it all. You'll get a little video explaining it. So I'll get your contact information in your email. We'll get you set up, and I'm excited to see what you guys think of it. And if there's stuff that you don't see on there that you want to see, we create content for our members all the time. So I think you guys will really enjoy it. And then I'll get you a copy of my book in the mail as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Gary, their anxiety just dropped from 1,000.
No, you guys got
I don't talk about these things for like scare tactic. It's all doable, but I think having the membership platform, you'll see we're there to help our members on the stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, but we also have a lot of stuff on there that you can look at and research that you can start to be proactive and start to connect the dots and understand how this all works. So I'm excited for you guys.
Carrie Luxem, everybody. Carrie, thank you as always for the guidance and leadership. Have a great day.
Thanks. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye. That's awesome. Big time.
I was like getting stressed out.
I know.
Me all these things. I'm like, I haven't thought about this stuff yet.
You know that's what I do with you guys. I stress you the fuck out, and then I calm it down and say there are resources. There is a roadmap to it. Yet we have to get real. In this industry, we have to get real. It is bigger than making food and drinks and serving guests. Right? That's actually the easy part. That's the easy part. We have to create the business side of the restaurant business to empower us to actually be able to do what we do and focus on the things that you love. So I really, really appreciate that. And Carrie's great with that. So you guys are going to get a lot of value. I'm going to siphon some of that. I want some access to some of that stuff. Carrie's good stuff. All right. I want to bring in Jordan Bush now, CEO, founder of 7 Shifts. Jordan, great to see you again.
Hey, good to see you too.
All right. So, Jordan, I want to dig into this a little bit because we need, restaurants, we've talked about this, we're Luddites. We want to cook. We want to make things with our hands. We struggle with technology so often. So what you've done of, starting from your father having a restaurant and doing things, these very, writing things down on pencil, some kind of fragmented spreadsheet. And you started building your company based on your need and desire to help your dad with his restaurants and take that to now over 400,000 users on the platform that are every single day engaging with 7 Shifts to make sure that they have clarity of communication, which is something we struggle with desperately in restaurants. And the other thing, Jordan, Ken, and Doris, this is important. You guys have seen this and heard this from me before. A lot of this came from a conversation Jordan and I had where he broke something down for me that really was like an epiphany for me. I know the numbers, 73% turnover rate in this industry, 56-day average tenure of a restaurant employee, right? 60% of restaurants closing in the first 12 months. The turnover cost for that turnover rate, $6,000 for a line level, $14,000 for a manager. These numbers are astronomical. If you're a 50 employee restaurant in a year, you're talking about a loss of $250,000. These are massive numbers. And then we say, I don't have the money to pay somebody more than $12 an hour when the livable wage is $14 an hour minimum in your area. And Jordan, you said something to me that really, I've stolen it. I have used it again and again. You said, what if $6,000 worth of food walked out the door? You would stop everything and you would fix that problem immediately. Yet at that cycle, every 10 days, that 50 employee restaurant is losing somebody. Every 10 days, $6,000 worth of human capital walks out the door, and we do nothing about it. It's an industry standard. That's just what we deal with. So I want to touch on that. I want to start with that because I think that is one of the biggest problems that 7 Shifts is solving. Touch on that a little bit, Jordan, how important that is.
Yeah, no, thanks. And just to give folks a quick bit of background, Jensen did a great job. I'm the CEO at 7 Shifts. We're a labor management platform to help restaurants manage their workforce. And we're currently used by over 15,000 restaurants across North America. Almost 90% of those are in the US. I am in Canada, so very cold up here. But nevertheless, there are no borders when it comes to technology. So we, much like what Jensen was saying, we spent a lot of time around what we refer to as the employee life cycle. So Carrie touched on some parts of that. And we look at it actually pretty similarly. We look at it in terms of, first you're hired, you're trained, you're scheduled kind of at the similar time. Then you're paid using a payroll company, and then you're effectively retained until you quit or you terminate that person. So when we started kind of narrowing in on that scheduling core and really just helping people budget efficiently. And as we built the business, and I worked in restaurants and my grandparents ran restaurants, and we kind of worked our way out in understanding the issues around hiring and retention, and just the kind of willingness to almost say, hey, it's industry norm for a lot of people to quit and turn over, and like that's just the industry. And I think to a degree some of that is true when you have folks that are going back to school and that sort of thing. But I think we can do a better job in terms of how we try and get the right people and how we try to continually engage them. And there's some studies out there that talk about Kevin Cruz wrote a Forbes article around employee engagement and saying employees with lower engagement are 4 times more likely to leave than folks that are engaged. And so I think what we try and focus on is unpacking what does that mean? Because engagement is just like this black box. It's like, okay, like how do I measure that? And there are ways to do that that we touch on within the product. But I think, starting there, it's kind of like understanding that there is a cost to hiring and there is a cost to having that person turn over. So time from you, time from the manager, training that person, getting them their clothes and things like that, their uniform, and to have them leave in 50 days is like just a sunk cost. Like it's so I think when we look at some of the best hospitality brands out there, I know everyone references Danny Meyer and the Union Square Group, and I think they do a really good job of understanding the cultural fit aspects of things, and they have something that Danny refers to as hospitality quotient. So he said, folks with the highest, with high hospitality quotient are happiest when their energy is spent making other people feel better. And so if you look on the Union Square site, you'll see they have 4 core values: excellence, integrity, hospitality, and entrepreneurial spirit. So when we think about at least hiring in our business, and I think restaurants as well, we try and figure out how we can screen for those things. So one of our core values at 7 Shifts is solving with simplicity. Well, what do? We give someone a really complex problem on a whiteboard, and we see if they can break it down in simple matters, or they almost like overcomplicate things, and they get to the answer, but it was just like you had a path there, and you took all these crazy winds around, and we might not hire that person because that's a core value of ours, is being able to think in a really simple way. You're not here to show off how smart you are. So I think there's things like that we can get into, but
restaurants struggle with that. We make everything too complicated. We literally make everything too complicated because there's something interesting. We've been talking about this internally a lot. The difference between easy and simple. So I love that you said simple. I've been really focused on simple. Simple tools, simple mindset shifts so that we can actually empower ourselves to take control of our lives and our businesses. We don't do a good enough job of that in restaurants. I failed at that time and again as chef owner of restaurants. So I think it's important. Easy. Anybody says it's easy to me, I'm like, restaurants will not adopt that. You will get lost in the adoption phase because we don't respect it unless we bleed out of the eyeballs for it. For some reason, I don't know why, Simple. We like simple so that we create a sustained effort around it, so that the budget is simple so Ken won't run away from it, so that the compliance is simple so that Doris doesn't have a nervous breakdown. These are very, very important. Simple. Easy, though, is not always easy, right? And we say easy, usually you're selling something. So I really appreciate that you're touching on simple, Jordan. So yeah, keep going. This is great. I love it.
Yeah, I'd actually even just love to engage Ken and Doris a little bit here. Like,
Please.
You know, I looked up a little bit of your restaurant, and you know, congrats on the success of it. I'm like on the website and I'm salivating over some of the dishes.
Cool.
But you know, would love to know, you know, in running restaurants, like what are some areas that you guys, you know, can see improvement in, or you know, struggle with, or would love to just know a little bit about how you see things and where you feel like there are room for improvements.
I mean, there's always room for improvements, you know, when running a restaurant. I think around our employee, since we're talking about employees and labor, we're very lucky. We have a very great team, and you know, a lot of them has been with us for a year now. You know,
It's amazing.
We just hired someone new. But I think something that we are struggling with is like, especially during this time, it's like slow season. We're in level 3 lockdown. You know, I want to still keep my employees. I want to make sure that they get enough hours so they can pay their bills. But it's also, you know, I want to keep everyone there. But it's like managing, like, how do I keep them there? They're making their hours that they need, but also we're not losing so much in labor costs. So like, that's what I'm struggling with, like, currently.
Yeah, just retaining folks through the pandemic, right? Until you can kind of ramp them up to full speed.
Right.
So what we saw a little bit of, and by the way, obviously I'm kind of like using an example within our platform, but like this is regardless of our platform, like it's what we saw was when the pandemic hit, a lot of folks turn their servers into delivery drivers. And so they try to keep them employed. So and maybe that, you know, a lot of folks kind of did that temporarily until they figured out what their next move was. But I will say in that process, I'll share the article I wrote about that, but most people did that knowing that it was an expense they were going to incur that maybe wasn't as efficient as it could or should be. But it didn't matter because retention of those great people were the most important thing.
Right.
So so that's something we did notice. And then for restaurants that weren't like scheduling as many people, because we're a scheduling platform, so we had these insights that we noticed was that a lot of them were using the communication side of 7 Shifts. So think of like Slack for restaurant workers. That's what they were using to send people government forms to apply for, you know, getting payments and getting paid by the government. And they kept engaged through those communication tools and just said like, look, like we're going to keep you up to date on what's happening. We're going to keep you up to date on like, you know, menu changes. And we're going to send training stuff. I know you're not here to work, but at least you can be in the loop of what's actually going on so that when you do come back and we're ready for you again, that you're not having to relearn and re-wrap up. Okay. So again, platform aside, whether it's ours or someone else's, I think that notion of just keeping folks engaged with what's going on is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I appreciate
they'll expect you so much more for it, right?
Like
it shows you care.
People, right?
Yeah.
Like checking in with people makes such a big difference. And it was one of the unique things about your platform when we were first interacting was you have the engage tool. And I was fascinated in that because often technology feels like or is an actual barrier between human interaction. And in the restaurant industry, and we all know this, but in the restaurant industry, we're all about face-to-face. And so the pandemic especially is a huge struggle because of that dynamic. We need that human interaction. We need that sense of belonging. We need that sense of self, that camaraderie. It fuels us. And so I think that's something that we're missing. So when we're talking about the engage tool, I was fascinated in that because it creates an efficient way to just have a little data point, a little check-in to be like, hey, what's going on with my people? Can you describe that? Because I think it's one of the things that most fundamentally feels like here still feels like I'm getting the opportunity to think about face-to-face interaction in a meaningful way. Can you kind of dig into that a little bit, Jordan?
Sure. I just have a couple of questions for Ken and Doris. How many employees do you guys have at your restaurant?
We have 6.
6. Gotcha.
And that's not including us.
Yeah. We were there too.
Yeah.
And prior to the pandemic, how many did you guys have?
I think we also had 6.
Right before the pandemic happened, we had hired 2 more people, so it was 6.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotcha.
And then we ended up losing probably, I think, like 2 to 3 of those employees.
Yeah, we lost 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you were basically cut in half.
Yeah.
So when we opened back up, we had 3. Now we're back up to 6, and we literally hired 2 more people, and then the level 3 restriction kicked in. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like deja vu. Hopefully we don't shut down.
Yeah. No, totally. I get that, and makes a ton of sense. When we think about, and you guys are a smaller staff, but I think when we think about engagement more broadly within restaurant workers, it was kind of like, how do we unpack that a little bit and understand a little bit more about some of the behaviors or characteristics that, we want to ensure that we have we want to make sure that we have those like good characteristics and behaviors from those folks, even if you are a smaller staff. And so we thought of like, do they show up on time? Do they work the shifts that are assigned to them? Are they picking up shifts for other people? Or do peers enjoy working with them? Like at the end of their shift, are they like, hey, yeah, like I enjoyed working with that person, and give them a thumbs up? And also, did the manager enjoy, like, does that manager enjoy them? And we also take feedback from that employee directly, saying like, how was your shift today? And so you guys might have a good pulse because you're only 6 people in terms of like your folks, but some folks that are a little bit bigger are often like, well, we have a new manager, and maybe they're young, it's their first time, and they're not as good at picking up on cues or just asking really simple questions to try and gauge how people are feeling. And again, we are people, so it's important to just say, we basically, I'll give an example. There's a restaurant in New York that was using the Engage tool, and the Engage scores dropped and all the employees like had negative engagement scores as per our algorithm. And then they found out that it was a bad manager hire. And so they got rid of the manager, and all the scores went back up because, people statistically quit. The number one reason people quit a job is because of their manager and their coworkers. But that's also the big reason why people stay, right? Yeah. So at the end of the day, they have to really like working for those individuals. And our hope with the Engage product is we can just flag like when there's something maybe boiling where people are giving feedback that they're not as happy, and like we're also seeing it behaviorally, where we can just give the managers kind of a nudge to say like, hey, maybe go talk to Joe, talk to Susie, like, and they can have that very human conversation. So again, you guys might be doing that because you're smaller, but that's kind of the premise.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely always ask our employees like, how was your shift? Because we work so closely with them. So like if we're not working a shift and we stick like 3 people together, we always ask the next day like, hey, how was your shift with blah, blah, blah. So this way we always know if there's any issues going on. Like you mentioned, like we're such a small team. We work at such a small, we work at such a small location. Like if one person's energy is off, you can feel it throughout the entire booth. Like the negativity is just there. So, like a couple of weeks ago, we had an employee who was very unhappy with another employee. And, we're all adults, we're all in our like 20, 30. So it's like, hey, let's all just sit down. Let's everybody talk about their problems. Because, when we don't talk about it, you don't know. And everything just gets boiled up inside until the point you're like about to explode. And you're like, you know what, I'm going to quit. Yep. Then you never have an idea why this person left. So, I think the engagement part is very important. And, it's good to hear that your technology has that feature, because as we grow, we're not always going to be able to talk to sit down and talk to our employees. It's important that they can have a platform where they can, express their feelings and also talk to each other.
Yeah. And Ken, Doris, this is what Jordan's saying right now is very important to thinking about scaling, because you are a small team. This gives you a massive opportunity, because if you are using an Engage tool like 7 Shifts has, what Jordan's talking about, you can create a baseline. So now interacting with you creates a baseline of the level of engagement. And then as you scale and you aren't the direct point of contact for the potential interaction of engagement score, you can look at that and evaluate that based on what you were able to accomplish. And then you start to scale yourself. That is one of the big things that the Engage tool really touches on. So Jordan, I really appreciate that. Any kind of last thoughts that we need to be thinking about? Anything else that like really brings this home that specifically 7 Shifts brings value into the whole restaurant ecosystem and Doris specifically?
Yeah, I think like restaurant operators are just it's crazy. The adoption of technology now is like insane, right? Like everyone's adopting some sort of technology because you have to during the pandemic, and it's kind of like you just have to do it to run more efficiently. And I think the future of operators are seeing that. And one of the biggest things is really understanding the value of a cohesive workforce, and the value of and the engagement you can drive just by having a product that everyone's kind of interacting with. And whether it's something like us where you can check schedules, submit availability, and do all that stuff. And regardless of size, because I think of something like what we offer. We've got restaurants of anywhere between 5 people and up, and the benefit that they get from it is more so like the ease of communication and just like giving people access to the information sooner. And so I think that it's going to be super relevant to look at ways where you can use technology to kind of stay engaged with staff and also get information out there sooner, and have it in a place where like, hey, we changed something, here's what changed, and everyone knows about it right away. And they can engage in a discussion, and there can be a healthy back and forth. So I honestly think like almost like regardless of size and whether it's tools like ours, but more restaurant operators are looking and going to be adopting technology, but that it integrates with other components of their business. And so I think as you guys assess what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, whether it be point of sale and payroll and how those things should flow, like I have a lot of advice, and I can even just consultatively like talk to you guys about if you're exploring some folks around that area, because we know like all the payroll, like not all, but we know most of, if not all, the main point of sale providers out there. And I have, I work with a lot of them on the partnership side at various other companies. So I can tell you the good and maybe the not so great that you may need to be aware of. But I think the most important thing is just understanding that the cohesion of workers is really important. And also that whatever technology you decide to try or to adopt, that it integrates with your stack. Because you're going to get benefits as you grow and as you scale that you wouldn't otherwise get. And I think it's crazy that there's just still so much fragmentation within the restaurant industry.
Yeah, you know what I noticed this week? I have an employee going on vacation next week, so I was updating the schedule anyways because we were transitioning to a newer schedule, and then I sent it out, and then she told me, she's like, I'm going on vacation next week, so I had to remake the schedule. And then she already spoke to all the staff on coverage. So after I sent the new schedule, she sends out her email saying like, oh, this is the coverage. And then now there's this massive confusion, like, okay, who is working when next week? So I actually think if I had 7 shifts, I could have just communicated that very easily.
Yeah.
Okay, no, this is the schedule for next week when this employee is on vacation.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And Jordan, what I'd say to that is we have the Best Served Fresh series with Yumi Tran. We talked about that a lot because she used 7 shifts, and she is a savvy operator. She is high tech. She came from IT background, right? And she didn't know about 7 shifts. And when it came about, she's like, what the hell have I been doing is what she told me. And she's using that day in and day out because now she spends almost no time on the schedule. And she's like, I value my time at $1,000 an hour. If it's not worth $1,000 an hour, I don't spend time on it. And she said scheduling was not worth my time, and she simplified the process. I think it's important. It was important for me to not only get Jordan here to speak with you, but also because 7 shifts, I think personally, my humble opinion, is the best interface and product from a technology standpoint. Yet, I think Jordan and the thinking is more important to me. So the fact that they're developing the Engage tool means that the next tool and the next tool and the next algorithm will be better suited for restaurant people because of that understanding. Because I interact with a lot of technology companies and they go, this is the best, this is the perfect version, this is the utopia. And I was like, we're like the Matrix. We fight against this perfect utopia all the time. Again, if we don't bleed out of the eyeballs, we don't respect it. That's what I really wanted. And so I wanted to get Jordan here, but also Jordan was gracious enough and wanted to offer the two of you 6 months free on the platform, which
Wow,
as the two of you are in the midst of scaling your business, this is absolutely the time. And, you know, Jordan, again, why was that important? It's important for you to connect with the end users, even if they have 6 employees, right? I think that means a lot to you and your company.
Yeah, I mean, like our platform scales from everything from, again, like folks of that size to like larger, but we focus on, I think what's really different is we focus on typically independence. Like we don't sell and we don't work with McDonald's for a reason. Doesn't give me like great joy, to be honest. I actually get a lot of joy in solving issues for like very savvy and like, you know, forward-thinking operators that are like care immensely about the food that they make and, you know, want to do it better, because I do believe the future of independent restaurants is so important. We need variety. I don't want the world to be run by chains. That doesn't give anyone any type of benefit in terms of what we can really do to show off our culinary expertise. And so I want to be able to support folks that are investing a ton of time in there, because you know, despite folks shutting down, like I just want to do everything I can to help. I know that I can't do a ton, but you know, at the very least, we can offer something so that you guys can start to see the value, and you know, hopefully, you know, when things pick up, you guys will start to see it as something that you know want to keep with. So,
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
I appreciate that. We are in the relationship business. This one micro interaction of the three of you now have a relationship. It means something. And I do believe that if we do that 3, 5, 10, 12, 20 times, it scales across this industry. We are way too fragmented. Good word that Jordan used. Way too fragmented. We look at the restaurant next to us down the street as our competition versus our co-opetition.
Mm-hmm.
There is absolutely opportunity to collaborate at every level. And I think it comes from having real communication. And so I appreciate that. So we're going to connect you all after this, because 6 months free on that platform in this time for you right now, Ken and Doris, can make all the difference. Those little cents and dollars, interaction and longevity of your employee that make all the difference. It's these tiny little things that accumulate to the two of you being able to, again, take a 2-week vacation without thinking or worrying about anything in your business. That's the test of a successful business. That's what we're hoping to get. So Jordan, I appreciate you being a part of that. Really do.
No, anything I can do to help, and yeah, happy to work with you guys on that and learn a little bit more throughout the process. Yeah, and I also wanted to throw out a coupon for it's the coupon code is best served for any of our listeners if they want 3 months free. So check out that coupon code, use it, and yeah, we're happy to help out as many operators as we can.
Yeah, that's great. The link to 7shifts.com is in there. 3-month free promo code is best served. It's our first, Jordan, this is our first ever promo code. We've never done a promo code before.
Well, let's do more. I'm happy to, you know.
I really appreciate that. And so people, if you're getting into any different plan within 7 Shifts in the checkout phase within the app, use that best served. And interested, we're all about taking in information. So we'd love to hear from all of our audience, all those up and comers, what they need. And I truly believe that the way we interact with our employees is mission critical. Number one. So Jordan, thank you so much for being with us. You have a great one. I appreciate it. Stay warm out there, my friend.
I will. Great meeting you, Ken and Doris.
All right, Ken, Doris. This was a long one. This was an important one, though. Your people is everything. This is the way that you can actually scale your business, because the two of you cannot clone yourselves, and you have to take that 2-week vacation. I'm holding you to that. We're going to work towards that. And this is what this whole series is about. We have illuminated, we're only on episode 6. We got a lot more to go. We've illuminated so much for the two of you. And I already see the little shifts in you. I already see those little things. And that's the way that we really need to invest. And so we'll follow up, because I think 7 Shifts absolutely is a way that the two of you can not have that one little interaction, but you're about to go and have 10, 12, 15 of those potential interactions. Those take all of your attention and your focus. And then that's where you start. It's a slippery slope. So I really want to make sure that you have that foundation, because look, the two of you have to be pillars in your community, culture and commerce. We talk about it again and again. That is what the two of you are leading yourselves towards. That's everything that I believe in, because if people believe in the two of you and you have a sound business, well, then we can get away from cheap Chinese food. We can get away from the two of you undervaluing what you bring to our community. It is so quintessential. So I really, really want to make sure that we can amplify that. So awesome. Appreciate you guys. All right. Next week, we're going to dig in a little bit deeper and deeper. We keep going. We're going to talk about real estate, which is such a headache. I know the two of you have been dealing with that, and we're going to dig into that a little bit. I think it's going to be super important. So tune back in for your physical space. We're going to get into that, because also your physical space is not just the restaurant we grew up in. There's different ways to think about your four walls, and the food hall you're in is a different way to think about that. And we're going to dig into that as well. So come back for that. You guys feeling good?
Yeah.
Very good.
This is a good one. I like this one.
Yeah.
This is a good one. This is a new thing too. I was like, hey, let's get these guys some gifts. You guys need some tools and some resources. Let's bring that to play. So we're going to keep that going, because that felt really good, right?
Yeah, that was awesome.
All right, Ken and Doris, appreciate you as always. I'll let you guys go. Audience, everybody, again, what we need to be focused on is investing in our most valuable asset, our people, as you develop your business in any part of food and beverage. The food, the beverage, the hospitality is the end result. It's the end result. It's not what's on the plate. It's who gets it to the plate that truly, truly matters. That's what I spent all my time focused on. That's what we have to focus on. And if we couple that with good business, right? Our two pillars, 75% employee retention satisfaction, number one, most important thing that we can do in our business. And number two, a roadmap that gets us to that 19% net profit. We'll dig into that a little bit more. But number one, today's theme, 75% employee retention satisfaction. How do we get there? Carrie and Jordan laid some of that roadmap down for us. Appreciate you all, as always, for tuning in. Get into the comments. We got a lot of things going on there. Andrew Parr wrote an amazing article that has a lot of resources. And we also are going to be bringing more and more up-and-coming operators into the new system. You can check out different ways that you can become a part of this series for your own business, get your own coaching, and we'll dig into that a little bit. Thank you so much, as always. Cheers.